You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
This is Andy.
And this is Matt.
And you're listening to
The Hot Podcast with no name.
What a dumb name.
It's so stupid. Episode 69. We are go. We are a go. That's how you start it. We spent some time, which is unique for us. This is a bad thing to say out loud. We spent some time discussing this episode before we recorded it because we wanted to.
I like how every time we've actually spent some time thinking about what we're going to talk about, you have to mention it because it is, and it's only been, you've mentioned it about 6 times because I think about 6 times we thought about what we wanted to talk about.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is a lot of the episodes that we record are, as we mentioned very early on, an extension of the training that we do. So it's very easy to be like, let's talk about risk normalization. Go. Yep. And we just do that.
Yep.
And then sometimes we're on a plane and we say, we should record a podcast about this. And we brainstorm the idea then, and then we just sit down and record it.
Or sometimes people fling us an idea and we're like, for sure, this should be our next topic. Yep.
And sometimes, very rarely, we either are unsure what we want to talk about directly, or we know there's something we want to talk about and we want to make sure that we understand how we want to frame it together and the nuance behind it and that we cover certain things.
Yes.
And this was
and this doesn't fall into any of those categories.
No, it was a little bit of column B. But it's to me, it's an exciting topic, and I know it is for you. And I think it's something that we see every time we touch the subject and talk to people about it.
Yeah. And I'm super, I love recording this podcast, period. I'm very rarely giddy excited to talk about something, and I'm giddy excited right now. I just think it's because I'm hoping that people are going to help us make this idea work and give us feedback and help us form it from this nebulous idea into something that is going to be really useful. So I don't know. I'm excited.
You're excited, which just 10 minutes ago, before we decided to do this episode, we were going to do a different one. Mm-hmm. And I looked at you and I said, we're going to record, but why are you sad?
He said, you look dejected.
Yeah, you dejected. And we discussed that,
and I told you why.
Yes.
And the reason why is the same reason we're recording this podcast, is because for as much work as so many really wonderful humans have made in this space, there is this repeated issue that feels like an insurmountable problem that I think maybe it's starting to become clear it's not so insurmountable. And the problem that we see, and I think, Matt, you have better words for it than I do, is that for as much as people understand conceptually these concepts, they fall into the same space you were talking about a couple podcasts ago of, I understand the concepts if I've seen a really comparable example, and that example exists in my world, and somebody has taught me how to think about that specific example. I can then translate it, if it's clear enough that there's parallels, into my world. And then that ability to apply the concept, like, that seems to be the ceiling in a lot of situations. Like, what is it called? Is it Bloom's taxonomy? Is that the name of the scale of learning, or I mean, a scale of learning? I'm assuming it's Bloom's
scale.
Specific.
That's the only
specific scale
it is
of learning.
Bloom's taxonomy. And I just want to quickly reframe what you said.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think it's the crux of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think what you and I talk about very often.
Yes.
Which is
that and accountability. It's just this and accountability over and over again.
This is what you and I talk about, I'll give an example. So to reframe what you said, we tell a story about a safety professional watching someone go through a door that says, do not enter, you could be hurt. We tell that story all the time. And we go through and we talk about why it's important to learn the context. And someone hears that story and they go, great. The next time I see someone who can read a sign go through a door that says don't enter, I'm going to do what I just learned about. But in that same way, it often doesn't apply to the next time I see someone not wear fall protection at 4 feet. It doesn't. The lessons don't always make it to that extension. It's usually fairly narrow. And when I see someone violating a sign, I know that I should learn about it. But when it's something more serious or just different, I can't extend that thought process. And to go a step farther, because I'm going to keep talking, you and I often stress how, if this is something that you believe in, the limit doesn't stop when you see someone violating a safety protocol at work. It would also apply in the rest of your life. So taking it a step further, you see someone violating a sign at work and you know how to interact with it from a hop lens. But what about when you're at home and your child is not following a rule that you've given?
Mm-hmm.
And so
or makes a statement or a request that you find sort of ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this is where I think you and I get so excited about talking through what we're going to talk about today, because if it really is a belief shift, then it's going to cover all of your actions across day and night.
Yeah.
Which is a Kid Cudi song.
But today, in the way that we teach the subject, right, and in the way that we see the subject being applied, there seems to be a cap in our ability, meaning you and me and other people who teach this, our ability to help translate this into a way of thinking that allows people to use it in any application they want to. And I don't even want to go as far as saying you have to use it in any application. Just the ability to see that you could, right? Like you could use it and it would make sense to use, and there would be value in certain circumstances to using it. We find that our ability to teach people how to make that mental shift is limited in some way. And it is the absolute most obvious when, you know, we're having conversation with folks about their work world, and they really seem to know how to apply the concepts, and they're sort of speaking the language and using the terminology. And then we'll go out to dinner with them and we'll have a completely different conversation about their personal life, in which it is really, really evident that none of it translated into how they might handle something in their personal life. And that's when it starts to hit me that, we kind of don't quite know how to apply it. We just know how to apply it given certain inputs. But if those inputs are different, then it's really hard to figure out how to use the concept.
Which I just want to be clear, it doesn't mean that we believe that we have the answers to everything.
Oh, no, certainly not.
Because you mentioned, we go out to dinner and we hear someone talking about their personal life and not applying it. It's not from a lens of judgment where they're talking about how everything in their personal life is great. They're often telling us about a problem they're dealing with in their personal life, and we're like, but we didn't quite get to problem definition,
right? Like there's so many assumptions. There's layers and layers of assumptions here. And it's not that there's a right or wrong answer in how you handle it, but the number of assumptions that have been made to get to this place of how you're handling it is so large that it's hard to even fathom how large it is.
But that's an important distinction, because we're not saying that this is the way. We're just saying that if we believe that really understanding what your problem is before you try to solve it at work is incredibly helpful. Well, guess where else that might apply?
Really understand
everywhere.
Correct. And if I had to say what it is in terms of like, what are the pieces that apply to the personal life, it's exactly what you were just framing. Once again, it's not how to handle every situation, but it is, in this situation that I'm in, what do I believe the problems are? Where did I get that information from? And have I critically thought about where I got that information from? How have I defined the problem? Whose responsibility do I feel like it is to brainstorm solutions to the problem? And is the thing that I'm trying to solve even on the scale of something fixable? Or is it just a fundamental factor of humanity that we all live with and deal with? Right. So if I'm trying to assess in any walk of life, using this mindset, the best way I know how to describe it very succinctly, which is not my strong suit.
I'm so excited for wherever this goes.
Is how we're defining our problems, who's defining the problem, and what assumptions we've used to get there. That's it.
That's pretty good.
Oh, thanks. I did my best. And I want to give just a simple, silly home example. And then we'll talk about what we're so excited about, or I'm so excited about. And I don't know, Matt, you have to talk about how excited you are. If you are or not, or if it's just me.
Pretending.
You're just pretending. Simple example from a couple weeks ago that I realized in the middle of the interaction that I wasn't learning. An amazing place to operationally learn or use this what is the problem definition is with children. And it's oftentimes because the mental models that they have about how the world works and what's important to them are so vastly different than ours become, through influence and culture and social norms. Like we all might have what we think is a fairly uniform understanding of just general life problems. And a child might have a completely different view that would be hard to guess at because, they have incomplete mental models or just a different mental model because of their exposure to things in their life. So my 3-year-old was wearing her Halloween costume to go to school. And she had worn it before in the house and to a party. So she's worn it once before. And when she was at home, she took this toy, this plastic toy that she has, a little phone, and she put it inside of the front of her costume. And she was walking around as though it was like a little pocket in the front of her costume where the phone went. So now we put on the costume and we're going to go to school in the costume for their Halloween party. And she asks if she can bring the phone and put it in the same place. And I said no, because part of her school requirements is that you're not allowed to bring toys. So that phone would be considered a toy. So I said no. I said no.
It was a toy phone, yeah.
Because it's a toy.
But the phone is a toy. Is it plastic toy phone?
It's a plastic, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a pink plastic toy phone. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. It's not a real phone. It's a plastic pretend.
Sure,
not.
Yeah,
it doesn't even make noise. It's
Yep.
just like it's just, a plastic thing that looks a little bit like a phone. And I said no. And I said, no, I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to bring toys to school. And she just started just crying, like aggressively crying. Now, my first set of assumptions, which are always going to have a set of assumptions. My first set of assumptions is she's crying because she wants to bring her toy. It's not her favorite toy, but it's one of her favorites, her favorite toy to school. And I'm telling her she can't. And she was picturing going to school with her toy and being able to play with it. And now she's not allowed to do it, even though she was allowed to do it in the house. That's what I'm picturing. And she knows the rules. And so my first thought is I'm a little bit frustrated that she's crying because she knows that she's not allowed to bring toys to school. So why is she pushing so hard on this? Now she's 3, so she doesn't have a lot of impulse control yet. So all of that makes sense. And I think I'm making all the right assumptions. But before I walked away, it just crossed my mind that, wow, that was a lot of assumptions you just made as to why she's upset. Maybe you should just ask. And so I said, hey, Fiona, why does that make you so sad? And I'm expecting her to say, well, I don't know, or I want to bring the phone, or, or just continue to cry and not answer all of the things. And she said, it's because the inside is scribbly. Now, for translation, my daughter uses the word scribbly, which I love, for anything that is actually a scribble or texture is uncomfortable. And she said the inside is
scratchy,
scribbly.
Right?
What'd you say?
Scratchy in the
scratchy.
Yeah.
Yep. So the inside is scribbly and it scares me. I said, well, what do you mean? The inside of your dress scares you? What part scares you? And she looked down, and from her view, the inside of her dress is red. She was a vampire, right? So the inside of the dress is red and it looks like to her blood. So when she looks down, she sees red and she's a little bit afraid of blood. And so it scares her. And so I said, but when you put the phone there, what's different? And she says, it's pink, my favorite color, and it's not scribbly anymore. So basically she's putting the phone in the inside of her dress. So when she looks down, it's pink and not red. So it's not scary. And it protects her from the little itchy frill that is on the outside of it.
It's
and
like
so I just repeated it back to her. What'd you say?
It's like a Victorian style vampire.
Victorian
costume,
style,
right?
yeah. And so I repeated it back to her. I said, okay, so the phone is helping you not be afraid of the color. And then also it's making it so it's a little bit more comfortable and not scratchy. Is that right? So now I'm defining the problem. And I realize I'm defining the problem based on her assumptions and her worldview, not mine. First set was my assumptions. Second set is her assumptions. And she said yes. And so then we came up with an alternative solution. What we just did was we took a big wide piece of blue painter's tape and put it where the phone would have been. So when she looked down, she saw blue instead of red. And then it also made it a little bit less scratchy against her skin. And she very, very happily, as soon as we came up with that solution, stopped crying immediately and very happily went on her merry way to school with that as the solution.
You took her, right?
She walked all the way.
She just go to school. All right. Well,
I've
done my parenting for the day.
Kicked her out and said, "You're 3. You're old enough to figure out how to get there on
a mile down the road. You'll figure it out."
Anyway, so that's just a simple example of applying it in a personal setting that is hard to have it cross your mind unless you've tried to apply it in a lot of different scenarios. And it would be really easy to just breeze past that and not spend the extra time to understand it and not really understand if there is a solution, or not even be able to explain, the bounds of what's possible or not possible from their worldview instead of your worldview. And so this is where the idea comes from, is what we want to try to do next is
and this is try to do next is not related to the podcast.
No, not related to the podcast, related to how we're going to try to teach the subject. Is that fair enough to say, Matt?
I would just caveat how we're going to try to teach the subject to the advanced. I think there's a caveat, right? We want to think about it from the lens of people still need to be exposed to understanding what this is.
Yes. So let's go back to Bloom's taxonomy of learning,
yep.
which is, I think that the first scale is just remember. You can remember information. And then the next level is you understand the information. So it's not just recall of, terminology, but you can understand it. And then the next level is the ability to apply the information.
Yeah.
And I think in general, the way that we try to teach the class is that the first sessions are about trying to remember and understand.
And they're defined as remember is to retain and recall information. So be able to reiterate, memorize, duplicate, repeat, and identify. Understand is to grasp the meaning of something. So explain, paraphrase, report, describe, or summarize.
Yeah. And so we give and this scale requires that you follow the scale, meaning in order to apply something, you first have to understand it and have exposure to it, right? So remember it. So when we are teaching a foundations class, a lot of it is around moving past remembering to understanding, right? So I grasp the meaning of it, makes sense to me, and I can start to apply the information. And then when we teach the skill set around operational learning, it's all about applying it. So I now understand it. So now here is one mechanism to apply it. Where we seem to get stuck is that is the only mechanism people can picture, and there isn't a larger ability to apply, which means that our at least it's pointing to me that there's something lacking in our actual understanding, because we can only apply it in some small situations. And so the thought process is we need to create I don't know, a situational.
Sorry, I think
Matt, go for it.
My brain is telling me it's important to explain what those other phases are in the taxonomy. So if someone's listening and they're thinking,
oh sure, yeah, go for it.
So we talk about the application, and apply in Bloom's taxonomy is to use existing knowledge in new context. And so we just talk about if we have this sort of shift in our brain, we can apply it in operational learning, and then we give examples elsewhere. Going beyond that is 3 phases. It's analyze, which is to explore relationships, causes, and connections. Evaluate, which is to make judgments based on sound analysis. And then create, so use existing information to create something new. So that's the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, is to be able to create with this new knowledge, something that doesn't exist.
And those last 3 phases are incredibly important in any organization, because in order to, for example, create a roadmap forward of how we're going to use these concepts, or take an existing element from a management system and start to we call it hopify it, but like put these concepts into it, or create a new audit process that would align with this thought. All of that is in these higher phases of this taxonomy. And I think in some places we're stuck at the apply. And so it's really then hard to go further than that, which means that organizations are highly dependent upon using, a canned program to try to roll any of this out, or relying on external consultants to come in repeatedly, because it's really hard to create internal expertise. We've reached a cap in understanding, and we're trying desperately to figure out a way to help get beyond that cap. All of that to say, that's the problem we've defined. Is that fair enough, Matt?
Very fair.
Very fair. And we've spent a lot of time understanding the problem, because we get to interface with a lot of people and we get to see lots and lots of examples of it. So we're trying very hard not to make assumptions as to what the problem is, but this is how we see the problem. And then, Matt, do you want to try to describe what we're trying to create or imagineer? If stealing, I think that's Disney's term, right? We're trying to imagine.
I mean, I can give the most basic of explanation.
Sure.
And it's something that I very fortunately got to experience in small ways coming up into through the sales world, where I was in my last career. We do so many role plays. When I say so many, I mean before you get on the phone for the first time, you probably go through close to 100 role plays of different scenarios with different types of buyers selling different products in different scenarios. And you sort of try to get an experience of what it's going to be like to apply the knowledge you learned through training. And so we have talked a lot about the idea of creating a more role play specific style of training. And
yes.
And I think role play, as someone
I think it's the wrong word, though.
As someone who, this is where I was going.
Yeah.
As someone who's played Dungeons and Dragons, just behind the scenes, in case anyone was wondering, which you may have already guessed that based on all the comments I've made. This is much more like, and we can talk about the show or not, but much more our thought is rehearsing.
Yes.
Going through a as detailed, as lifelike as possible interaction in a world that is familiar to you or can be familiar to you, to practically apply this knowledge in many scenarios of a variety of settings, but all of which have meaning to you, that you can see yourself actually doing this in a real life scenario or situation.
Yes. And I think the difference between that and role play is, I think, at least historically, role playing, in order to facilitate it logistically, people would have to act.
Yes.
And they don't, like,
Assume
no
a
one
character.
wants to.
Yep.
Yeah. Get a character, assume a character, and they have to act. In this circumstance, the acting, none of the humans that were learning would be acting. They would be interfacing with either professional actors or people that are very good at acting, that are creating a scenario around them that they then get to try to learn and fail safely in, where you could rewind and try again, right? You could do it 4 or 5 different ways to try to see if you get different outcomes, but you get to experientially be part of a scenario and try to navigate it multiple different ways using this thought process, so that you had practice in a place where it didn't feel so bad to get it wrong. and have people mentor you along the way of, like, okay, we tried it that way. Let's think about the thought process we were using, the assumptions we were making. What do we want to try differently? Rewind it back. Let's try it again and see if we can get to a different place in conversation. And we do a little bit of that today in how we train. Like, I get into character and act and cry and all that good stuff. But
those are at the same time, just to be clear.
just crying.
They're not. You don't act.
It has nothing to do with
and
acting.
Separately during the training, you're also just crying. Those are not.
And people tell us that that's the most memorable part of the training, is when they get to see things in real time and they get to experience a bit of the emotional aspect, and they get to try things out. And so we're trying to extrapolate that out into something much larger than the tidbits that we do in a classroom setting, and extrapolate it outside of work, right? So that the scenarios you'd be facing would not just be work scenarios, but also personal life types of scenarios, so that people could get mental practice exercising that part of their brain until hopefully it didn't feel so foreign, and then it'd be easier to apply in lots of different scenarios, not just a few that are, brought out in a training.
And I think it's also about failing safely. You mentioned that. I think that's incredibly important. I think anyone who has, I'm going to make so many broad statements right now. Anyone who is a leader at an organization probably has some fear of failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that often means that we are reluctant to try something that doesn't have a very clear, very wide landing zone that feels safe and secure. And if we're being honest about what hop is, it can be a drastic change for people to move to. And so I think creating a space where someone can fail safely and get right back on the horse and try again until they can get it right, if they want to get it right. I mean, right? We're not going to force people to do it, but if they want to get it right, I think it's a really great opportunity to change.
Yeah. And the scenarios would be focused around, how are we perceiving what the problems are? How are we defining what those problems are? What assumptions have we had to make or use to get there? And at least being able to be really good at articulating problem statements, how we got to those problem statements before we even start to think about solution setting, right? And then the next piece of the puzzle is, how do we feel like we're solving? Whose responsibility is it to solve this type of problem? Is it solvable in this circumstance? And being able to critically think about each of those pieces in a lot of different scenarios, whether it be interacting with somebody at the front desk of a hotel who seems to have had a really bad day and is asking you for a piece of information you don't have, right? Whether it be who's asking a seemingly ridiculous request that you know is against a rule, whether it be someone who seems to know the answer to something within a manufacturing space and who is saying, hey, the answer, the solution to our problem is this, right? All of those various scenarios, being able to interact with them to make sure, hey, well, what problem are we even solving here? And how do I know it's the right problem for us to be trying to address? If we could impart anything in giving people space to practice that, I think that would be my dream of how to help people see it that way.
And if you're curious what this might look like in a much grander scale, there is a show called The Rehearsal, which I think is important mentioning because we've alluded to it. So if you want to just sort of see it done in a much different scenario with a much different purpose,
and a lot of money in a much larger scale, but like
yeah, a very different, but it's just it is a good representation of what it's like to try something new and try to prepare and be in a scenario where you get to be yourself, but the world around you is replicated and safe to try. And I think that's something that I wish more people had access to, was the ability to try safely and just while being themselves. So that's just a good representation of what it could look like and sound like.
Yeah. So I guess if anyone hears this and they have a visceral response to the idea or questions about it, if you're willing to share, meaning like, hey, you listen to it and you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard and it's never going to work because of X, Y, and Z, please let us know. If your thought process is, that's interesting, I have these questions about what you're thinking and maybe it might make sense, please let us know. Or if your thought is, yeah, that would be incredibly helpful, sign me up to your first pilot when you want to try it out, let us know.
Yeah, and let us know through the Hop Podcast email. If you have our numbers, text us. We are very curious about this. It's something that we do spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about and see a high amount of potential in. So we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you for hanging on. This is going to be a 30-plus minute episode, so you can tell that we feel strongly about it. But that's it for this one. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.
Well, that's it.
Yep, another one in the books. We did it.
If you want to send us any of your thoughts, actually fling us any of your thoughts, you can do so at the website www.hoppodcast.com.
That's HOPPODCAST.com.
It's still such a stupid name.
It's such a stupid name. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and 1 consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference. From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete signal transmission trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.